G'day, Geoff Lewis here from Seriously Series. Today we're going to be looking at something very interesting as always. We're going to be looking at how to bake biscuits. Doesn't sound that fascinating, but there's a twist as always, because we're going to be looking at a quintessential Australian dish. That's right, the humble Anzac biscuit. And I'm also going to be showing you how the ingredients here that go into the humble Anzac biscuit can actually fix your car. How's that possible? Well, I think you know what to do. Stay tuned. Rightio, so the humble Anzac biscuit has really been around for a long time now, over 100 years. But the story behind it is really fascinating. But I'll talk a little bit about that while we're baking them on our new fancy oven that we've got here. Well, it's just a fire, but anyway, let's get all fired up and get into it. So first things first, you need a proper Australian recipe. And I understand that many of you don't have access to this. So we're going to be following the CWA Country Women's Association recipe. And I've actually put that in the content section down below. So you can go down, you can copy it, save it on your computer, you can look at it on your phone while you're having a go at doing it yourself. But the ingredients behind it is really simple. And the great thing about them is they travel really well. They don't go moldy very easily, and even in humid conditions they don't break down like a shortbread biscuit does. So they're pretty durable biscuits. So anyway, what we need to do first is we need a little bit of self-raising flour. We need a little bit of bicarb, bit of salt for taste, and this is one that, depending on how you were raised, you'll either use it or not. And unbeknown to me, I don't know how anyone got it during the First World War, but shredded coconut. Anyway, I guess it's a good filler. And obviously a bit of golden syrup too, and with a little bit of sugar also. Now, the great thing about the Anzac biscuits, or the Anzac recipe, is that it's pretty forgiving. And I've actually forgot a few of the ingredients here today. Shock horror. So I've actually forgotten butter. So you put 50 grams of butter in, or 2/3 of a cup of butter. So I'm actually going to be improvising, and I'm actually going to be using dehydrated milk, or milk powder instead. And we're going to see if that works. Who knows? But that's the great thing. Why do you want to eat the same thing twice? So anyway, let's chuck some ingredients in the bowl. Let's get the camp oven warmed up on the fire, and we'll go from there, hey? So rightio, first things first, we're going to add 1 cup of self-raising flour. I'll just pop that in there. And one of the key things is don't go too cheap. Buy yourself some good quality flour. That way you don't have to sieve it and get all the lumps out of it. So it just makes life a bit easier. And flour is pretty cheap. Then what we need to do is 1/4 cup of rolled oats. Now, some people call this porridge, as I do. If you're in those conglomerate of states called North America, then you'll probably call it oatmeal. Anyway, depends on what school you went to. So anyway, so we'll put 1/4 cup in there. So that's all good. And then we need to put a little bit of coconut in there. Rightio, so crack that open. And we'll put about 1/2 cup coconut in there too. A little bit extra for good measure. Rightio. Now once we've done that, Rightio, so once we've done that, we need to mix a little bit of bicarb soda, a little bit of golden syrup with some boiling water, and then pop that in. We'll put a little bit of salt in while we wait for the, there we go, while we wait for the water to boil. But anyway, I'll go get the billy off the fire and we'll chuck a little bit in and get the camp oven prepped. Rightio. So one of the great things to do, particularly out here in Western Australia, because it's so dry, is to actually dig yourself a little fire pit. It's something I always do. You make your fire in there, the coals stay in there. It means the coals are less likely to blow away if you've got a bit of a breeze around the place. And the dirt that you've got, always make sure you put it in a pile next to it. So when it comes to leave, you can simply just bury it. And it means too that you're not leaving a heap of piles of ash all around the place. You know, leave it as you find it, pretty much. Anyway, let's get the camp oven off. Right, so you have to use the right mug for this. So we've got a dessert spoon, tablespoon of golden syrup. We've got a little bit of hot water. Then we're going to put in half a tablespoon of bicarb, just to give it a little bit of kick. And just mix that all together. Now, one thing you have to be really careful with these biscuits, and be warned, is you have to get the temperature right in your oven. They burn really easy because of the golden syrup, or the sugar in it. Right, there we are. So we just need a little bit more sugar in there, sugary goodness. I'll get a good wooden spoon, mix it up, and we're nearly there. Rightio, so I have had a quick check on the Anzac biscuits and they're looking really, really good. I'll show you in a minute. So 10 to 15 minutes is the time that we want to allow them to bake for, but depending on how good your wood is, this will obviously change. So make sure you probably check them after about 5 to 7 minutes. This will give you a bit of a gauge whether you need to put a few more coals on, take a few off, and that way you should get the perfect biscuit. Anyway, let's have a look inside. Rightio. So we'll just flip the two handles up. Oop. There. Oh, look at that. That's exactly how you want them. Nice golden brown, and you should be able to get your finger and just tap them and they'll just bounce back. That's absolutely perfect. Another top-notch cooking video. Must be beginner's luck or something. Anyway, the next test we have to do is taste them, so I'll see if I can get one of them out and see if it tastes any good or not. Rightio, moment of truth. See if it's any good. That isn't bad at all. I think with a bit of butter in it, and obviously one thing I needed to do with the camp oven was obviously get the paper that you actually use to wrap your butter in. Once you've actually used up all your butter, be sure not to throw out that piece of paper. It's really, really handy to keep it because you can use it in your camp oven and you can just run it round really quickly prior to putting it on the fire, obviously. And it's a great way to almost sort of create a non-stick surface inside your camp oven or your pan or your cooking tray or whatever. And the great thing about it is it doesn't really cost you anything. So I always keep a few folded up in the fridge at home, and I always make sure that I buy butter because butter is natural. So once again, a little bit of butter in this would probably taste a bit better, but still really for a concoction that's just been whipped up here on camera, not bad at all. Not bad at all. Top stuff. So it really does go to show, you know, you don't have to be a chef, you don't have to be a connoisseur to actually eat well when you're out in the bush or out on that next big adventure. As you've seen, the ingredients that I used here today are very basic, and the great thing about them is that they actually last a long time. They're sort of, I guess, non-perishables, you could say. And that's really where the story of the Anzac biscuit comes about. There's a few conflicting tales, but the one that I like is that a lot of the women or the wives back home here in Australia actually came up with the recipe of the Anzac biscuit, and they actually baked a heap of homemade biscuits and sent them over to the soldiers in Gallipoli, I think Palestine, and on the Western Front. And most likely it was probably the humble Anzac biscuit. So really interesting tale behind it. The other thing is too, as I said before, the ingredients that we actually used here today, you can actually use to fix your vehicle. And this is actually something I always take with me. And I always take flour, a sack of potatoes, and always take rolled oats or porridge. You can get like instant porridge. It's more like a powder. Now so the other thing is, with the ingredients that I showed you earlier, you can actually use it to fix your car, as I mentioned. And the component is actually rolled oats. Now here in Australia we call it porridge, and basically porridge is a mixture between water, milk, and that's really about it. And you put it on the stove and you let it sort of simmer away, and it forms like a bit of a gluggy paste. And what you can do is you can actually use that and put it in your radiator, and that'll actually go through the radiator. If there's a crack in one of the radiator cores, it'll seal that up. If there's a crack in one of the water jackets or water jacket of the motor, it'll seal that up too. And if you don't believe me how hard it actually bake on, try cleaning porridge or oatmeal off a bowl that's dried out overnight. It is an absolute pain. So you can imagine how hard it actually sticks to that area where there's an error or there's a crack or something, imperfection in your actual cooling system in your car. And the good thing is too, when it comes to stripping the motor back down, it's really easy to remove. Much easier than using, I don't know, Quicksilver or Quick Sealant or something like that. And if you are enjoying the content here at Seriously Series, then please do consider supporting us via Patreon. And if Patreon isn't your cup of tea, then do please consider supporting us via our website. You can click on the link in the content section down below. And if you're new to the channel, then be sure to click on the subscribe button down below. Click on that notification button too, and that way you won't miss out on one single video. Anyway, I'm going to finish off this Anzac biscuit and get stuck into another one. Anyway, catch you in our next video.